First of all, good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. And I want to thank Dr. Serpico for inviting me. And I feel quite secure because I found out retired New York City police officers are taking care of security in the court here. From experience, I wonder why that was so blurry. I've noticed most often that people in power write history, often edited for publication or misdirected by Hollywood for dramatic effect. Recently, a few years back, there was a republication of my book. I tried to get in a letter that I wrote to Clinton about police corruption and his response, but the editor, or I should feel, I say the censor, would not allow the letter in the book. So I hold a degree from Brooklyn College and a degree from John Jay Groot School of Criminal Justice. But the degree that I hold most dear to my heart is the degree from the College of Hard Knocks. I am amazed by authors who think they can write books about people 2,000 years after their death and claim to be able to capture the character of their subject. As recently I heard about Cleopatra. I'm amazed because of the distortions written about me in my own lifetime by supposedly credible and intelligent authors. I live in upstate New York, where in 1987, after living abroad for 10 years, I'm returning home and traveling to every state of the Union, Canada and Maine, in my little camper. And then I built a passive solar wooden cabin, heated by means of a wooden stove. It's kind of hard to leave this one. At dusk, I like to walk through the woods or down a quiet country road. And like Emerson, I try to attune my ear and my heart to nature, to the music of nature. It's very sobering effect and allows you to think very clearly. I feel an affinity with Emerson, not only because of our views on nature, but because Ralph once was shouted off the stage at Harvard, and I received only a slightly warmer reception as I tried to lecture on ethics at Harvard Law School. The topic was not being for sale at any price. I've come to realize ethics cannot be taught. It can only be shown by example, preferably at an early age before the damage is done. Alexander the Great, with a marvelous opportunity of having Aristotle as his mentor at age 14, turned out to be a madman like his father. Deeds are like stones that cast upon the water, they make ripples. Whether the deeds are good or evil, they still make ripples. The bigger the stone or deed, the bigger the ripples. Sometimes the ripples last for a lifetime, and those made by great thinkers may last forever. I would like to mention a few deeds and their ripples that may have affected the shaping of my life, and an anecdote or two that time will allow. Both my grandfathers were coal miners in West Virginia coal mines. My paternal grandfather went to pick up his last day, and he was stabbed and robbed and died as a result of his wounds. My father, a World War I prisoner of war, survived by supplementing his normal ration of 2 fingers of bread and water by picking the lice from his clothes, or an occasional mouse or rat that he was fortunate enough to catch. Once he said he found the bone of a dead horse and gnawed on it like a dog. And once he brought home a box of little crackers. He didn't read too well, and he saw it said milk bones on there, and there was a cute picture of the dog. And we were little kids, so we all laughed, but he just laughed and ate them himself. And probably helped him because At the age of 84, he went to his rest with all his teeth intact and not one cavity. At Christmas time, we were the last family on the block to set up a tree. Not being able to afford one, we waited for Christmas Eve when all the stores were closed and we started trees. And in anticipation for the coming holiday, me and my brothers would collect discarded cigarette packs and would strip the foil out of them and use them on the tree. We'd use it as tinsel. I have memories of working in my father's shop, in his repair shop, as early as 5 years old. I would drag this horseshoe magnet over the millings on the floor, pick up the nails and sort them and put them back in their proper box. Later, as a preteen, I would shine shoes in my father's shop. And one day, a big burly red-faced cop walked in with his shiny brass buttons and blue coat. I stood in awe as he walked in the door, mounted the shoe shining chair, and I gave him the best damn shine I'd ever given anyone in my life. And as I stood back to admire my work and his appreciation, he simply walked out the door. Without paying, without a tip, without a thank you. And I thought, how could a police officer do such a thing? But then I realized he'd left his billy club in the chair, and I picked it up, ran after him. Officer, officer! He turned around, snatched it from my hand, and walked away. The next time he came into my shop, my father greeted him with, "Shine? 10 cents. Pay first." The big spender made a U-turn and was never seen again. On quiet days in the shop, I would take my shoe shine box and walk along Eastern Parkway and on the promenade. More often than not, I'd wander into the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens, lying flat on my stomach. I'd peer through the spacings and the planks and look at the giant carps in the Japanese garden. Or I'd wander into the Brooklyn Museum and marvel at the wonders of the world. Once in a while, I would get beaten up and robbed. There were street gangs, and some boys carried knives or a weapon called a zip gun. It was a crude, handmade contraption that was more dangerous than a person firing it than the one on the other end. I decided to go on better. I was going to make a 6-shooting zip gun. So I adapted a converted cap pistol. When it was time to test fire it, I went down to my cellar and squeezed the trigger. A deafening roar and a flash of light exploded in my face. My thumb looked like chutney. I grabbed it with my other hand and went upstairs and sat down at the kitchen table by the window. I'm feeling kind of faint, and my mother said, "Frankie, are you all right?" I said, yeah. She said, "You look kind of pale." And I said, "You sent me down the cellar and chop wood, and the axe slipped, and see what happened?" And she said, "Oh my God, I have to go to the hospital right away." So I walked around the corner to the Brooklyn Jewish Hospital, and the nurse said, "Why, what happened to you?" And I said, "I hurt myself with a shell." I was a tough guy. And she said, "How did you do that with a seashell?" I said, "Well, no, a seashell was a bullet." She turns around and starts dialing the police. I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "I have to call the police." I said, "Hey, don't make it a federal case." She said, "This is a federal case." Well, 2 cops showed up and they said, "Okay, kid, where's the gun?" I said, "Gun? There was no gun. I lost my tough guy." And I said, "Well, how'd you do that?" And I said, "Well, I was trying to take a bullet apart and I put it in the vise and it exploded." It exploded, huh? Yeah. "Where do you go to school, kid?" I said, "I just started St. Francis. And when I grow up, I'm going to be a cop. Plain clothesman, in fact." I didn't know about plain clothesman. That's what I wanted to be. So he said, "Oh, yeah?" He said, "Well, if you want to grow up to be a cop, you better not do nothing stupid and behave yourself." So after that, when I grew up, that is, out of school, one of the jobs, as Dr. Petit mentioned, was I worked as a private investigator in a drug firm, and I would have to make friends with the suspect and find when he was moving the package, and then, like they do in movies, they'll take out my hanky, blow my nose, and the cops would move in and grab him with the stuff. And I'd have to be taken in too, to avoid suspicion. Now, my immediate bosses didn't know that I was working undercover, and they'd look at me and say, "Frankie, how could you do such a thing?" Well, what I learned from that was, when you keep your nose clean and you do the right job, you never know who's looking, and you go home and you go to sleep at night. And then came the day, and it was actually September 11th, 1959, I became a police officer, and I was assigned, like everybody else, to the police academy. And at the time, the synagogues were being desecrated. And so the department got the idea, hey, because the rabbis were all up in arms and they wanted action, they said, why don't we take all the recruits out of the police academy, we'll pair them up and put them in their car, and they'll sit in front of the synagogue. If they see anything, they grab the guy. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to do that. So on the very first night, I was assigned with my partner, a very good cop who kept his nose clean. And I noticed two guys clambering over this chain link fence and said, hey, John, look at this. One guy had something shiny in his hand. We jumped out of the car, and here we go, recruits from the academy. Okay, police freeze, or spread them out, yeah, cha-cha-cha. And one guy, the shiny thing in his hand turned out to be a money changer. It was filled with coins. And the other guy had a straight razor. It was a short guy and a tall guy. And in police MO, this is known as a Mutt Jeff team. So we took him in, and the lieutenant said, bring him up to the detectives, you might have something there. As we walked in the door, there was this cabbie there. He jumped up, he says, that's them, those are the guys that just robbed me. Well, we closed out about a dozen cases. These guys had their wallets full of cabbies' licenses back when, before they put the screen in. The short guy would hold a razor to the driver's throat, and the other guy would clean him out. And that was, everybody was ecstatic. It was the best collar in the academy. We were going to get the mayor's trophy. We didn't get the trophy. Some inspectors definitely got it for, I didn't bother telling you what, they call it a collar. So anyway, then I was doing patrol, uniform. There was the nickel and dime stuff, traffic, and it's like, they didn't tell you not to do it. They just told you not to get caught. So, and then my boss at one time, he approached me and he said he was going to put me in for plain clothes if I could catch this burglar in the precinct. And I said, plain clothes? Are you kidding? Everybody knew that plain clothes was correct. And so he said, Frank, nobody can make you do what you don't want to do. I thought, oh, is that easy? Okay. So I caught the burglar. In the movie, he was portrayed as a black guy. That's Hollywood's profiling. He happened to be a white guy. That's where the cops came around and started shooting. And when the orders came out for me to go into plainclothes school, these two cops, they went right into the detective corps. So apparently somebody was lying to me. But the department policy at the time was built on self-destruction because you had to put in, as the captain said to me, 4 years of plain clothes, that's vice squad, you keep your nose clean, you go right into the detective bureau gold shield. Well, in the department there was this thing known as the grass eaters versus the meat eaters. Did you hear that back then? And see, they were the grass eaters because they would just graze on, prostitution, vice and gambling. They would never touch the meat eaters. That was narcotics. Oh, that was terrible. But after grazing for 4 years on a policeman's salary and being accustomed to this elaborate life, like one guy had a couple of Corvettes, on weekends they would charter a boat and go up and down the river and have big parties. Now you're in narcotics, it's just a little small chunk that you would just justify taking money. The city's going to get it anyway, what's the use? And then I find myself on this roof, and I'm supposed to get the door open for these guys, and right then I knew something was wrong. Something was telling me to take my shield and my gun and throw it over the roof, because it had been a number of years that I had been going to the higher authorities, waiting for them to do something about the corruption. The fact was, they all knew about it. They were all part of it. So anyway, I thought, well, let me get it over with. So I knocked on the door with one cop standing right there with his gun out, another guy isn't going to help. I knock on the door, I say I want to make a buy. The guy opens the door, I hit the door and bust the chain, and I had my snub-nosed 38 special. Unlike the movie version, Chino, you can't get his 9mm in the door because I had a 9mm. I was the first cop in New York City to carry one. It took the NYPD about 25 years to catch up. But anyway, I had the guy covered, and I find her standing there like cigar store Indians, and I made a mistake of taking my eye off the bird and said, "What the hell are you waiting for? Give me a hand." When I turned back, blast of fire in my face, and as I went down, I returned fire and I hit him, and with a cop on the left and the right, with their guns drawn, the perpetrator was allowed to pick up my gun that I dropped inside the door and escape out the back window. So, and then there's all this talk. He said, I don't know what he said, they just left me there to bleed to death without a 1013 being transmitted. Anyway, that's my take on it. And the way he was caught is, as everybody in New York's finest went in the front door, they followed the blood trail like Keystone cops. One solitary cop who lived out of the city heard a cop had been shot. He came in off duty. He covered the back window. As the perpetrator was coming out, he would have escaped again. He was holding my gun, and the cop shot him in the stomach. And that's how he was apprehended. So, of course, the police commissioner, the reform commissioner, Patrick B. Murphy, said, well, the cops lined up to give me blood. But according to former SIU detective Gerald Kelly, is that her name? We had a couple of retired police officers in the back. He wrote Honor for Sale. And he said, not one of New York's finest volunteered. Sympathy, protection, if not complicity by the civilian supervisors, the commissioners, and the mayor is an adhesive ingredient cementing the ring of resistance, us against them. My wounds were deemed inoperable. After further police harassment and threats on my life, I went to live abroad. I rented an 1802 cold water chalet in the Swiss Alps. Most people are surprised to see me because they think I'm still living up in the Swiss Alps, according to the movie. Anyway, here I am, up in the Swiss Alps, my walls won't raise. It's the FBI. How does the FBI know? I thought the FBI was supposed to be a national organization. They want me to come back to testify, and I said, I come here, I'm trying to get my life together, and you're busting my chops, you want me to come back? You know what you can do, don't you? And he said, well, we have a subpoena out for you. If you don't respond, you'll be held in contempt and subject to arrest. I had to flee with my dog Alfie in the snow, and I went to the Westphal Works in Germany, and I got a Volkswagen camper, and I toured Europe, and I ended up in Holland. In Holland, I rented a house on the canal. I was out in my garden, and a little kid fell into the canal, and I managed to rescue her, and a crowd started forming, and I heard the police sirens. I thought, gotta get my butt out of here, or here goes Holland. And then a couple of nights later, my dog Alfie's barking. There's a burglar breaking into a boat on the canal. So I call the cops, and they say, come on, Alfie. We go outside to watch the police action. And the cops asked my name, and I said, I don't want to get involved. And they said, what is your name? That's almost easier to like English, right? The next day, 2 detectives are at my door, and they escort me to police headquarters. And I thought, well, goodbye to Holland. And we come in the garage, and there are the cells. And wow, stainless steel, you can eat off the ground. There's nothing like the Raymond Street jail. It's like a veritable dungeon. But they don't put me in there. They take me upstairs to the police commissioner's office. And the police commissioner jumps out of his chair, a wonderful-looking, gray-haired man with a smile on his face, and he says, Mr. Serpico, may I shake your hand? What? And I look on his desk, there's a copy of the book Serpico, and he wants me to sign it. Meanwhile, back in America, Commissioner Commissioner Murphy and his friend James Fife, Murphy in his book, The Commissioner, Fife in his book, required reading in law school, totally distorting the facts of what happened on the night of the shooting, who later became the Deputy Commissioner in charge of training at the police academy. They started their smear campaign about Serpico. And then another guy, a Harvard graduate, in his book, said Serpico was half crazy before he got shot in the head. You had to go to Harvard to say something like that, I guess. And there wasn't any corruption, it was collusion. And I said, is that the Harvard word for corruption? So anyway, I eventually came back to the States, and I was told by a fellow law professor, retired cop, at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, my alma mater, Patrick B. Murphy has a lecture series. I thought, great, let's go listen. I've been trying to catch up with that guy. I tried once to catch him upstate, and he ran away from me with his, like a scared rabbit when I tried to ask him what a 1013 was. Does anybody know what a 1013 is? Well, you guys do. That's the highest priority officer down, okay? And I remember the first time I got a 1013 called on me, I was holding 4 guys at bay, and I thought, what the hell do I do now? It was pitch black. Next thing I hear these sirens coming, I got chills down my spine. Some old lady saw that I was a cop, and she called in. This is what I tell cops. You know, if you show the public that you're trustworthy, they'll be there for you when you need them. A crooked cop won't. So now, I confront Murphy. We're at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice question. I have a question for you, Mr. Murphy. I said, my name is Frank Serpico. I've been carrying a bullet in my head for over 40 years. And you, Mr. Murphy, are the man I hold responsible. I could hear a pin ring. And he's like, oh, why, Frank, I said, you are the police commissioner. You came into power on my charges of police corruption. You could have protected me. Instead, you left me dangling out there in harm's way. What do you got to say for yourself? Why, Frank, I said, let me read from your own book. Confidential memo. What do I do with this guy, Serpico? Do I promote him? Sign him to a special unit? Do I keep my eye on him? The press has me on the spot to show I'm bigger than the system and reward him. And if that wasn't bad enough, you had the audacity to write, looking back from my perspective as the head of the National Chiefs of Police in Washington, I don't think promoting Serpico was the right thing to do. In fact, it was too bad. I said, have you no shame? Puts his head down, and then the jury there said, there's no time for this discussion, I'll have a discussion. Thank you very much, I'll be waiting. Never called me, although she works for the Justice Department down in Washington. So you see how it works, you know, it's all, you know, go along to get along and you all get taken care of. So, recently in the Netherlands, I attended a screening of a documentary, Drug Wars, Damage Done, which I was one of the characters in it, with a bunch of other fantastic police officers and narcotics agents. It was premiering in Washington, in the Netherlands, and the current police commissioner came to introduce me. And he got up on the stage and he said, in 1974, I was at the crossroads of my life. I had to choose between going to the sports academy or being an F-16 pilot. And then I saw the movie Serpico, and my mind was made up. He became a police officer. And sometimes I do community theater, and recently an officer came up to me. I didn't know he was an officer, a gentleman, and he said, Frank, I'd like to thank you. And I said, what for? He said, I was a police officer in New York City in 1968, which was when the height of the corruption was going on. He said, the NYPD was so corrupt I couldn't do my job, so I quit. I joined the Army, came back 4 years later, and I was able to retire with my pension, my integrity, and my honor intact. So, You do deeds sometimes unbeknownst to you. It makes ripples and it affects other people's life. And there are many other similar situations that happen. And one of them, quite similar to Dr. Petit, because his mother told me, hush hush, she took him to see my movie when he was 7 years old. And once I was doing a police award ceremony, and I was given the officer's award, and he says, my father took me to see your movie when I was 8 years old. And that's when I decided I wanted to be a police officer, just like you. So, in the streets of Athens, the young loved Socrates because he stimulated. The old hated him because he irritated them. They had become settled in their ways and didn't want to be disturbed. 400 years before Christ, he believed in one God and preached, do not return evil for evil. Persuade your country to do better if you can. At age 70, as you may know, he was condemned to death for his beliefs. I take it most of you are interested in business careers? Yes? I hope so, otherwise what are you doing? I'm currently viewing a book for a comment for the government accountability project. It's called Committing the Truth, a corporate whistleblower survival guide. You might want to keep that in mind. In today's business world, with greed and corruption and deception as I speak, it might come in handy reference in the future. In closing, may I remind you of the words of Emerson, who concluded that each of us possess the spiritual capital for developing an enormous business, the business of acquiring and exchanging beauty, joyousness, and hope, friendship, and peace. The trouble with most men, he said, is they are like little children, unaware of the heritage which is theirs. Assert your heritage, it is there for the taking. George Santayana, one of America's greatest thinkers, said, we need no new philosophy. We need only the courage to stand up to the oldest and the best. Q&A. So, anybody have any questions? Wow, did I answer all the questions? Yes.
So this was some time ago, changes happened to deal with corruption.
I'm sorry, do you have a microphone?
So times have
Where's
changed.
Washington?
So the times have changed.
Times have changed?
You helped usher in and time of change here in New York City. But what do you think about development in general now?
You really want to know?
That is,
I think-
definitely want to hear your opinion.
Well, the letter I wrote to Clinton, I said, I didn't vote 25 years, the last 25 years, because I lost my trust in America. I said, you can make a difference. Instead of the Republicans and the Democrats opposing each other like enemies on a distant camp, come together for the good of the people. Do you see the Democrats and the Republicans doing that today? No. So, in my opinion, politics comes from two roots. Poly meaning many, and ticks, which is a blood-sucking insect. They are all multi-billionaires. They're not concerned with the people of the country. They're only concerned with their own egos and their own misdirected lives. And as far as things changing, things don't change like that. You can't do something and sit back on your laurels and think, you know, like people say, oh, there's the police department. I don't know if you know what's going on in the police department. I got letters from all over the country and the world from cops trying to do the right thing. The thing is, nobody wants to listen to them. Nobody wants to upset the apple cart. I don't know if they're just this year, if you ever heard of a patrolman, a New York City patrolman called Adrian Schoolcraft. You know, he was doing a good job, as I think, you know, being a good cop is not just arresting people. out of jail, helping citizens, and doing good public relations, as Ashcroft was doing. Right? So Ashcroft, oh my God, watch out, schoolcraft. And what happened to him? He was threatened by one of his officers, and he said, "I'm going home sick." That night, they broke into his house. This is a New York City police officer in 2010. They pulled him out of his bed. They handcuffed him behind his back and took him to the psycho ward in Jamaica, where they held him there for 6 days, handcuffed to a gurney. And he watched the police talk on the internet and, well, they never do that, they couldn't do it. Fortunately, he has it all recorded. So, as they say in French, plus que ça change, plus que ça reste le même, The more things change, the more they stay the same. So, you can't let down your guard. Diogenes said, there are 99 scoundrels for every decent man. And I have no reason to question that. Sir.
Frank, do you have any comments on the recent killing and death of a patient university student?
That was very unfortunate. That was totally uncalled for. It's really a shame that in today's culture where, we can't understand each other. I mean, I feel very close to that because I was a police officer. And I remember a guy said, I used to live in Greenwich Village, which is a very large gay community. I mean, what can you say? I mean, there is no delineation. There are people like everybody else. Everybody has their own preference. You either accept that or you don't accept humanity. Like the stuff that they're doing with the military right now. I mean, I could tell you stories of people that they did. I mean, it would be ridiculous to say they were gay and they did that. They're human beings, citizens with the same emotions, feelings, and everybody else. But there are these people that, they're so, as I said, it has to start from when you're young, that your mind gets distorted. I remember like this cop said, I can't stand it, I like to shove my fist down. And I said, oh, and I won't mention any names because one of them I mentioned before. It was, very against gay people, a police officer. And I said, what's your problem? He said, well, you walk down the street and they look at you and, and I said, really? I said, well, you should be on it. I said, they found you attractive, And I said, what happens when you're walking down the street and you see a girl that you find attractive? What do you do? They act like a jerk. I said, what happens if she's not interested? Huh? I said, end of the game, right? I said, same thing with a gay person. I said, maybe you better look in your closet, huh? Any more questions?
If I recall from the movie, at the end, you don't get the girl.
Huh?
I said, if I recall correctly from the movie, at the end, you didn't get the girl. Did you get the girl in real life?
Oh, there were enough girls. And, be careful, we're on camera here. They say never run after a girl or a bus. They'll be by shortly. Any more? There's a great book out, by the way. I think it's called If Aristotle Ran General Motors, The New Soul of Industry, or something like that. It's an interesting book. It talks about, nobody says you can't make money. It's always a way to make it, If you be honest and forthright with the people that you're dealing with. But as we know, big business doesn't work like that. Yes, sir.
When you advise to the movie, you got Pacino to work with him, you were an advisor to the movie, and what's your impression of it?
Yes, I did work with Pacino, and so much so that he got into the character that I hear. At one time he tried to arrest somebody. But he was, I think he was dating Faye Dunaway at the time. And she reprimanded him. She said, look at you, why don't you clean yourself up? You see Frank, his beard is nice and neat. And, you know, but you know, we all know he overacts. And I hear tell, I sing better than he does. When I heard that John Skiki, but a great actor, no doubt. Everybody says he was more mean than I am. We got 4 questions. Why your thought? Last chance, sir.
Is there anything you feel that you could have done differently back then to expose you and put it on lawsuit? Is there anything that you feel with today that you could have done differently then to expose you?
I don't think so. I mean, I was kind of naive, you know. I thought we had like an internal affairs. And I thought, what? Wait, I'm going to get a load of this. You know, it's like, it's the system. You know, they like to sweep it under the rug because, again, it's politics. The police commissioner wants to become the mayor wants to become the governor or the president, and like in my case, Mr. Lindsay, he had aspirations to be the president. And recently they just put out Revisiting Fun City, and I noticed there was no mention of the NAC Commission whatsoever. So, you know, this is what I mean about revisionist history. People in power, they like to, you know, I offered my guns to the New York Police Department Museum. They said, Serpico who? So I put my guns on permanent loan with the Italian American Museum, where I shared the honor with one of my heroes, Joe Petrosino, who I just tested one of the guys from the bomb squad in the past. Joe Petrosino was the Italian police officer who started the bomb squad. And he was at the time, the commissioner was Teddy Kennedy. And Kennedy said, I have inherited one of the most corrupt agencies in the country. And he got out of there as fast as he could. And he promoted, actually, Joe to lieutenant. But then he went to Italy to investigate some Black Hand stuff. And my investigation indicates that Big Mouth commissioner broadcast that he was going there. And when he got there, he was killed. He's the only New York City police officer killed in the line of duty outside of the United States. Last chance.
Do you feel that the NYPD as a system would corrupt otherwise principled people, or did you feel that it's the NYPD as a system tend to already corrupt people gravitate towards it?
Can anybody? Well, if I may, you know, we had another thing in the police department in working in the vice squad. This guy says, you know, this guy goes up to this woman and he says, hey, did you go to bed with me for $1,000? Did you have sex with me? She said, sure. He said, well, how about $5? She said, $5. He said, $5? What do you think I am? He says, we've already established that. This is covering the whole price. So, you know, it's, you know, like I said, either, you know, I heard from good friends of mine, cops, they say, well, you know, Frank, I had a house in Staten Island, the kids, you know, the dog. Hey, you know what the salary is of a police officer? You know, in fact, I think that's part of the problem America is facing today. We're really not living above our means. We're living above the planet's means to sustain us. You know, the population is doubling, the food eventually is going to run out, and that's what's happening. You know, I was raised on economy and frugality. You know, I see people, they get food stamps, God bless them, and they come out of the supermarket, they got a case full of rice and beans. Now, for the price of one of those cans of rice and beans, you can buy a pound of rice and beans, you have enough to cook for the week. And that's economy. We have to be taught economy, and You know, junk food to me, fast food, and fancy food, they're all in the same category. You know, you're paying for stuff you don't need. I believe in a good, healthy diet, Mediterranean diet, and a good balanced diet. And eating in season, this is what I was taught by my parents. They had their own garden in Brooklyn. My mother, we raised enough tomatoes during the summer to bottle them to last a whole year. My father made his own wine in the cellar, and they never owned a car, always took public transportation. Today, I mean, you know where we are. Everybody's texting each other while they're walking, and faster and faster and faster, instead of slower and slower and slower. You know, they're making faster cars. I have a hybrid. I found out if I keep my mileage down, if I keep my speed down, the mileage doubles. So where are we going in a hurry? We have to slow down and take time out to smell the roses. I saw another hand. Yes?
Were you ever considered playing yourself in Serpico? Would you have done so?
Well, funny you should ask that, because, you know, actually, the director was supposed to be John Allison, who came to visit me in Switzerland. And I worked with him on the script with Norman Wexman. And I remember we were walking down Perry Street, and he says, "Frank, I got a great idea. You're going to play yourself." And I said, I'm a cop, I'm not an actor. And he says, "Just think of it. You'll be some kind of word like," and I said, I don't want to be that. I want to be the real thing. So, anyway, I did get some offers to do movie stuff, and as I said, I like to do a little community theater. I was pleasantly surprised by the Howard Zinn, whom you all should know. You know, the People's History of the United States. We wrote a play on Kemper Goldman, and I played at the Briar Cliff Playhouse in Woodstock, and I played Johann Most. And Howard complimented me, saying he saw that played around the world, and no one came as close as I did. He said I was the embodiment of Johann Most. I got it but I did. Any more questions? There was a hand over there that was sort of questionable. That's good. Wow. I can get home in time for supper. That it?
Where do you live?
Where do I live? I live next to Dick Cheney at an undisclosed location. Are you kidding? You know, one day I went to the Internet Movie Database, and I said, "What's this?" The guy put his name as the Blue Wall. I said, "The guy's got to be a cop." So he said, Serpico, he knocked on the door, and he said, which means I need something. His cops, his partners there, they were a little slow. I said, "Be a little slow." I usually don't write back to these guys and put my name. I said, "Listen, hairbag." I said, "How many collars have you made, in uniform?" I found out he's kicked down a lot of doors and got in trouble for it. And he's also a wounded Vietnam vet, which probably was part of the problem. I say this in all sincerity, that he would flip sometimes. And in fact, he wrote a book, I'm giving him a plug, Latin Blues, in which he said, one day he was with his partner, because I always said, "I don't care, I know there are two cops picked me up and took me to the hospital. It saved my life." And he said, he was working with one of them, and he said, "Turn here on Driggs Avenue." He said, "You see that building? That's where Serpico got shot." He said, "If I knew it was Serpico, I would have left him there to bleed to death." Well, Joe, I'll refer to him as Joe, that's his real name. He's a nice guy, but he doesn't want to leave me alone, And here I am, I had the shingles, I was in bed. Next thing, he's been calling me all week. Next thing, he's in my driveway. How the hell does he find out where I live? Internet. No more secrets. But my property is landmine. Okay, this has been great. Thank you all very much.